Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. I'm hoping you guys are all having a fantastic day. So in today's video, as you can tell by the title, we will be talking about a kind of general pattern that is coming up into fruition in my opinion, and I'll be explaining why I think that winter will be making a comeback across much of the United States in the next, really the next few weeks, and I think it will be starting to be felt by the end of this week. Now, for many of you, this is a comeback as you already have seen decent snow right across the mid-Atlantic regions. Decent portions of the Northeast have seen some snow, portions of the Midwest. But, you know, for others, this isn't much of a comeback. It's more of like winter's arrival, because let me show you some of the snowfall here. I just want to start off by showing you some of the observed snowfall that has happened so far this year. Right, and again, you can see that there's been a lot across the west. They've kind of, again, subsided. They haven't been seeing much activity since that flurry of storms across early December and the first half of December and into Christmas. And then you can see that we do have decent amounts across the UP. Marquette, Michigan, for example, is right around average where they should be with that snowfall. Duluth is similar. Decent amounts of snow for sure up here. Notice there are a few patches across South Dakota and Montana, though. And once we start getting to Nebraska, Kansas, I mean, you know, they haven't seen much of winter at all. And in fact, in Indiana, Illinois, Missouri, there hasn't been any snow whatsoever. My area, we've been dealing with decent cold, but again, the snow hasn't been much of anything. And you can see decent portions across the south have, you know, dealt with a lot more snow than areas way further towards the north. And I think that a lot of activity is coming up for many of these areas. Again, the details are still fuzzy, but I wanna explain that to you and why I think I'm pretty confident in, again, winter's comeback or whatever. And you may be wondering, why am I making this video? And you could tell, as you look at the weather map, there isn't much that is going on right now. There isn't a massive system. There are obviously a few smaller features that take take the eye, and one of that is really just the cold air. And again, the cold air has been just persistent across much of the northern United States, but it's just been really by itself. No big snowstorms. There has been obviously those two systems across the Northeast that did take advantage to that cold air, but not across the Midwest or where that cold air is actually, because that was really just a flank of the cold air that reached the Northeast. Notice the lakes are indeed seeing a lot of heavy snow. And you could see that there are actually lake effect watches, winter storm watches for, let's click on just north of Jamestown. You can see heavy snow, so that's good. You know, the lake effect snow belt's finally seeing snow. There are some flash flood warnings and advisories in rivers that are rising across from all that snow and that rain that fell across these areas, because yesterday they got a lot of rain after a lot of that snow. So again, that is definitely of concern. And then across the south, we do actually have some tornado watches. You can see that the risk isn't awfully high, but it is a slight, and a tornado's a tornado, so they're not taking any chances. Of course, if you hear a tornado warning siren, the National Weather Service issues a warning: head indoors and seek shelter, obviously. And then, the rest of the United States is high and dry, which is, which is why I haven't been making much videos in the past 2 days, because there wasn't that much to talk about, and also now there isn't, but I wanted to make a general broad video. Okay, so enough of that. Let me start talking about why this is potentially going to be an active return. So let's take a look at the Climate Prediction Center. This is the #1 agency you guys should be looking for if you kind of want a decent, I say decent, view of what's to come, because of the fact that they aren't always accurate. It's not because they are bad, they're not accurate, I'm better or anything like that. Weather's hard to predict, but this is probably the best resource you can look at for the timeline, for the time frame that's relatively mid to far out. 6 to 10 day outlook, so between the 15th and 19th. Again, anything up until that date is not included in this forecast. And you can see it's chilly across the eastern corner of the United States, warmer towards the west, but also just near normal. Nothing too extraordinary. The anomalies aren't extreme in either side. Precipitation outlook, drier towards the west, a bit wetter towards the south, the coast, and maybe across the plains right there. Again, potentially starting with that active pattern, because all you need is even a little bit of precipitation, moisture, in very cold air, or just normally cold air, and you could squeeze out quite a bit of snow. For example, today in my area, we could get almost an inch of snow from just just from a few hundredths of an inch of precipitation, because how cold it is. So again, and that snow will be pretty tumultuous for the commute because of how slippery and low traction snow is versus just a few hundredths of an inch of precipitation. So it doesn't have to be necessarily a wet pattern to produce snowstorms. 8 to 14 day outlook. So again, this is now the 17th through the 23rd. Again, doesn't take impact or into account anything that occurred prior to the 17th or anything after the 23rd, just between these dates. And notice the cold air expands, and they're actually pretty confident about it. Kind of, you can see with those darker shades of blue, almost 50 to 60%. In terms of precipitation, near normal, a bit above average for the northern plains and towards the south. And again, this is their confidence, so this is still changing. This might turn into a drier pattern or a warmer pattern or a very wetter pattern. It's all still fluent, but you can see that they're definitely leaning towards the side of a cooler pattern. And I do think that is pretty well warranted based off looking at some of these weather models. So let's go back to the GFS, and I want to show you some of these weather models. This is the most recent weather model run, and for looking at a pattern, kind of what's to come, the GFS is a good model, but you have to look at several runs, because one model run at, say, the afternoon could show a snowstorm, and then the next one could show something completely different. But I'll show you a few and just run through them. Notice that these first, 90 hours, you may have noticed that you may not even notice that it moved, because literally just nothing occurring across the United States of significance. There is starting, obviously there are a few areas that will be seeing precip, really the south, a bit of moisture, but again, relatively unaffecting most of the viewers and whatnot. The storm moves in onto the northwest. That sends a little clipper you could see towards Thursday, right there, boom, across the Midwest. Again, very low confidence how that will unfold. We also have to watch this beast. This could get closer onto shore and produce some snow, or it could stay off the coast like this and still produce very strong winds and waves. So we'll have to watch that. But let's just put this into the future. Again, you can see systems across the south, maybe across the northeast. You can't tell on this map, but there is quite a bit of plentiful cold air, especially towards the long range. And some of these clippers start picking up potentially some of this moisture from the south, and we start seeing bigger systems. You can see right there across the northeast, maybe we're seeing some storms. And again, some GFS models show a lot more activity, some don't. And you can see this one relatively doesn't show any big monsters or any big systems that are of great concern. Let me just run that through again one more time with the MSLP and precip. Run that through just a bit quicker. So again, we're not really looking at the singular model run to base our forecast off. We just want to look at it so we could compare it with other ones. And again, yes, this is very fast, but you can see there is quite a bit of activity. And again, this particular model doesn't really couple any of these two sides, the warm and cold ones, to produce any big storms, but there have been ones in the past. And I'll show you the European and Canadian models, which are different models, and they do that. And notice, look at this. This is definitely something to watch for. Look at what GFS did today at noon. It showed a massive nor'easter. Doesn't bring much snow, but it just extremely strong winds potentially, and it's a bit too close to comfort, so we'll have to watch that. Notice a little clipper forms, potentially another nor'easter potential to watch. We have again more lake effect, more cold air. There some sort of a system occurring. Again, nothing too intense, but yeah, we'll have to watch and just watch and see. Right there's a pretty powerful nor'easter, and just these waves of cold air. You can see a lot more cold air proportional to how little snow there could be. Let's take a look at another model run, 6Z GFS. Again, the GFS ensembles aren't the most excited about this pattern. It's really the Europeans and the European ensembles. But look at this. Look at this model shows with that nor'easter. So you can see that clearly the models have trended away from this nor'easter, as the morning one showed it onshore. The other ones kind of, the most recent one keeps it off, but look at that beast. That's just horrendous. 955, that's like a hurricane. Regardless, you can see it shows activity to the south, a bit of clipper activity towards the north. Again, this may not look significant, but if it's so cold, the snow is super fluffy. It could accumulate several inches without a problem. And then notice a very cold air mass. These clippers just kind of riding along as a highway. We have a stronger system. Turns into some sort of a northeast mess maker. Another one. Again, there's quite a bit of models that favor the northeast seeing quite a bit of snow, but again, there are a few that show the Midwest picking up on decent amounts as well. For a change, let's take a look at a different model, the Canadian. I think this one has a better chance of being accurate because it agrees with the European, which is another one I'll be showing you. So notice it's quiet for most of this week, but then we start seeing a flurry of activity. Clipper, storm, right there, potentially nor'easter. And then we have another coupling of storms about to occur right there as we get towards the 240-hour range. Again, I'm not trying to point out the timing of this. I'm just trying to show you the activity that the models are showing and how it increases over time, and how also the cold air doesn't really go anywhere. And if you've been cold across much of the northern United States, it will probably stay that way. This week will actually probably offer some of the warmest days in a while, but then after that, that is short-lived. So that's the Canadian from today at noon. Let's take a look at its yesterday's model run in the evening, or sorry, sorry, the midnight. So again, it's a pretty not that old data. And let's take a glance at this. Notice we have flurries of clippers that start to begin to show, several bouts of moisture, maybe some northeast systems, nor'easters as they call them, and again, constant activity either from the south and north, and all you need is a few of these to couple. And again, sometimes, that happens according to the Canadian, for example, across the Midwest. With this system, boom, those two combined create a pretty big system, and across the northeast they continue to produce a lot of snow. So these potentials, could kind of seemingly pop out of nowhere, because one model like the Canadian or the GFS may just show a little clipper, a little bit of moisture, and if they don't, combine together, they're both pretty benign. Pretty benign. But then if they do end up colliding and forming like the Canadian does with this system right here, which the GFS doesn't, they could be a lot more nastier. And again, hence why they could kind of come out of nowhere, even though they really don't. And if you were to look at other models, you would see that they don't. Let's take a look at the European model. So this is what I showed you. I was showing you that observed total snowfall for the season. Let's go to the models, and I want to show you the European model. It's a very good model. Some people say it's the best one out of all the models. So yeah, it's pretty heavy here, I guess. Biased, a lot of people towards this model, but I guess it's not a bias if it is a well-warranted kind of favoring of this model, because it's historically been one of the more accurate ones. And then notice that as I push this through this week, again, not a lot of activity. A clipper system sees way further towards the north for Canadian folks. That could drop a bit of snow into the cities. Really not much, though. I wouldn't say that's much of a concern. We do see warmer temperatures across much of the United States this week, right? But we do start seeing that clipper. European doesn't really form anything insane out of that clipper. You can see it just shows a lot of rain off the coast, but it does introduce a bigger one that does pick up some moisture. It is a lot stronger. You can see those snowfall rates are heavier, drops several inches of snow for the Minnesota area, Iowa, Illinois, and then the system dives to the south, potentially forms into some sort of a mid-Atlantic, maybe a nor'easter system. Again, you can see this one kind of just hits the mid-Atlantic and zooms off. But the European, it continues activity. It shows quite a bit of snow, or kind of a piece of energy, the cold air driving pretty far to the south. Again, maybe another sort of a Midwest system, a nor'easter, and then you can see that's another one that we have to watch for. So, and then there's more out along the way, because we have this just baroclinic zone that sets up, and it's just this highway of these systems riding through. Again, potentially a very good pattern for nor'easters, or also just for systems across the Midwest. And let's take a look at some other model runs of this same European model, just at the midnight one, so it's an earlier model run. Again, there was our system yesterday, dropped quite a bit of rain, quite a bit of messy weather. We got a bunch of freezing drizzle here. And then notice that out of this, there's that quiet week of weather this week, very warm temperatures, and then we see that little clipper that the European has been showing for several days. You could see yesterday kind of evolved it into a different storm with that previous model run. Again, will this happen? Potentially. You could see it's a pretty nasty one if that were to occur, and we see more systems, more storms kind of taking that ride all the way to the south, picking up moisture, coming back to the north, being as like a stronger storm, and you can see more heavy snow out of that. So it's an active pattern, and we'll just have to wait and see for who exactly is it active, where these systems set up, and what exactly can we expect. I do want to show you now a few little things regarding the temperature. So this is a GEFS. It is a bunch of models that I like to look at. It gives us a good look at what the weather models are thinking in terms of temperature. So it's not just one model, it's many. I think these are 31 models overlapped over each other. And obviously, if they show a lot of cold air and it's many models, that there will probably be cold air. If they show warm air, it will probably be cold air or warm air in the short range, right? But I like to look at this for like any patterns that will be occurring. Notice that in the meanwhile, for the next week, again, till the end of this upcoming week, it looks pretty warm. Warm temperatures, nothing, maybe not a heat wave. Maybe for folks across the west, there could be some pretty darn warm temperatures. You can see right there for this portion of the week and across the plains. But it doesn't stick along for long. And notice that this cold air starts budging into the northeastern United States. Again, I'm going over this quickly. Could slow it down. But notice, by mid-January, the cold air is back and it actually settles in, and it's a very strong air mass. And you can can see right there, boom, it's actually pretty dominant, like it has been for the past few weeks across the north and eastern United States. Again, it does try making a few side swipes this week, but it's mainly for the extreme northern United States. It's mainly warm mixed with a bit of cool, but then towards the end of the long range, kind of the end of the medium into the long range, we start seeing more cold air. And, all really big ensemble that I like to look at to show that. This is GEPS, a different set of models, also pretty accurate. Again, we'll just have to wait and see. Or let's see what they show. You can see the cold air, the blue colors become a lot more dominant towards the end. And there's a lot less of them now. So again, that does seem pretty accurate to say that winter is probably going to be making a comeback again, but the details aren't really sure. EPS, European ensembles, so this is less further out. It only goes out to the medium range. So again, if you recall, the GFS started showing the brunt of the cold air further out. And you can see that the European does show a lot of warm air. It does show a few of those air masses that are pretty cold. And then it does introduce that warm air, but you can see it starts becoming more repressed and the cold air becomes more dominant, especially towards the end of the medium range, towards the middle half of January. So for my final piece of data that I kind of want to show you guys, or piece of content, I guess, that supports my claim that the winter is going to be making a comeback, is a total snowfall forecast from different European weather models. So this is a website where I could see individual ensembles, so individual kind of like mini models. The main ones I like to call the GFS, Canadian, European, for the global ones. And then these are like the mini global ones. It consists of what the ensembles show, which I showed you in terms of what they think of the temperature. But I want to show you what they individually think of snow. These go out to 15 days, and it's not like a cumulative forecast of what the snow is. I could look at each individual one. You can see this one shows a snowstorm across the south. This one shows a bit towards the east. But I just wanted to, you to focus on this and notice that a lot of these models show a lot of snow, and it's especially across the Great Lakes, portions of the south, and especially the East Coast. I mean, look, almost every single weather model shows this, and it's not a single one that just shows no pink spots, which is a lot of snow, by the way, over a foot of snow. These gray colors, that's around less than an inch, so that's nothing. But a week ago, if you were to look at these weather models, a lot of them just showed these blue colors, nothing really significant, a lot of disagreement. Now we have a lot of confidence. Look, I mean, most of these states right here are covered with snow in each forecast, with each model. Same with the the East Coast. There are some differences. You can see some show a lot more activity towards the west, others don't really at all. But it's a much more active pattern. Look at that. And this is just the next 15 days. Doesn't even take us through the full of January. So again, a lot of people are wondering whether or not winter is even going to come. Again, across the areas I haven't seen much snow, but stuff's about to get active in my opinion. Again, you can see some models favor the Midwest more, some more the East, some kind of the southern almost United States. So we'll just have to wait and see. But I mean, look at the New England with this. That's just stunning confidence with every single model run. They seem to pick up snow. Same with the Great Lakes though. And as I push this forward again, each model run, you can't really speculate on a single one. You say you click on this one and you're like, whoa, the Mid-Atlantic's going to get hammered. Again, it's just showing you, I'm kind of trying to show you these models that they're showing activity, whether or not there's going to be a system here, over here. It's a bit, that's kind of the second part of the question. The main one is whether or not we have the pattern that's going to be conducive of these, and I think we most definitely do. And you can see some show multiple clear systems occurring. Some just show really one or two big ones, but again, based off the pattern we're having with those clippers, it seems that there will be multiple. All you need is like two big ones, and you could have overlapping snow areas that produce over 2 feet of snow from like two separate systems for some areas. You can see this one's a bit quieter, still though decent snows across the Minnesota area, North Dakota, and more towards the north. And then some are a bit more reserved and just keep it for the kind of Virginia area, the Massachusetts, New York, New England, which is still good amounts of snow. So yeah, you could see right there. I mean, anywhere in that pink, for your reference, is over 12 inches of snow. And with assuming a 10-to-1 liquid ratio, with the temperatures being pretty cold with some of these systems, this could be even much higher with some of these systems. So yeah, we'll just have to wait and see, guys. And I do want to say that, for a lot of these areas that just see that light blue, that may not look too enticing. That's assuming a 10-to-1. These areas will be very cold, so you could probably assume you'll see close to 6 inches if this scenario were to come true. You could multiply that by 1.5 or even 2 across southern Canada to get the accurate kind of snowfall fluffiness, if you will. So yeah, I don't think that there's any way for this to be a giant bust. I think that, there's a lot of cold air that's available. You can see the Climate Prediction Center is showing that in the long range. The models are all showing that. And then, of course, I do think that you have that pattern. We have that northwest flow, a lot of cold air towards the north and east. These systems will be kind of riding along, producing those systems either across the Midwest, even the South, as you saw some of those models show that snow, or even just across the Northeast, which a lot of models do show that. Alright guys, that is basically it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you all on the next episode. See ya. Bye.